Red Anansi and the Old Money Web. The Belgravia Club had stood for nearly 200 years, its walls thick with the scent of old tobacco, older men, and the oldest kind of power, money that had never needed to be earned. The waitstaff moved like ghosts in the dim candlelight, carrying whiskey on silver trays, whispering through the corridors as if careful not to disturb the spectres of the past. But Red Anansi was no spectre. He sat at the head of the long oak table, alive, resplendent in a three-piece suit that had been tailored for him in Paris when his rivals were still in their father's ledgers. His fingers drummed against the polished wood, slow, deliberate, waiting. Across from him, Lord Kettering was sweating. It was a sorry sight, really. The young lord had once carried himself like a man who believed in his own destiny. Eton, Oxford, a title passed down through centuries. He had thought himself untouchable, until his debts caught up to him, until the markets turned, until the whispers in Mayfair's parlours spoke of a man whose name was older than England's history in the Caribbean, a man who had waited long enough. The gathering of spiders. The other men at the table, the dukes, the viscounts, the sons of shipping and steel, said nothing. They were learning what happened when you broke a deal with Red Anansi. Anansi, old man, aye. Kettering tried, voice strained, fingers twisting in his lap. Anansi raised a single gloved finger. Silence. He had taught their fathers this lesson, and their fathers before them. The lesson of a web spun patiently over generations. The lesson that was not the spider that moved first, but the fly that strayed too far. You made a bet, Red Anansi said at last, his voice a silk thread in the dim room. And you lost. Kettering's hands twitched. It was a mistake, a misunderstanding. Surely we can. Anansi sighed, lifting a stack of papers with the careless ease of a man who already owned everything in them. Let's not pretend we don't know how this works. A flick of the wrist. The deeds hit the table like a gavel. Silence stretched. The younger men at the table, they understood what they were looking at. Shares, bonds, assets, transferred and signed away. Kettering was already dead. It just hadn't sunk in yet. The debt. Anansi, please, Kettering whispered, leaning in, voice barely audible beneath the weight of his own ruin. It was almost pitiful. Almost. Begging doesn't suit you, Anansi murmured. Your grandfather had more dignity. Kettering flinched. Ah, yes, the old deals. The old debts. They had never truly gone away. Red Anansi tilted his glass, watching the amber liquid swirl. You have until morning, he said almost gently. Kettering swallowed, hands trembling. Until morning? For what? The smile Anansi gave him was the kind that made lesser men forget how to breathe. To run. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Kettering opened his mouth, closed it. His throat bobbed once, twice. Then he stood, chair scraping against the floor, and left without another word. The door shut. The Belgravia Club remained silent. Anansi set his glass down, turning his attention back to the men who remained. The dukes, the viscounts, the lords and barons and billionaires sitting stiff-backed, watching, understanding. Now, Red Anansi said, straightening his cuffs. Who's next?